It's a lovely summer's day, Linus, in central Stockholm, as it is at the moment, as we conduct this interview. We are in the middle of a pretty lengthy summer break of 6 weeks. What have you been up to lately?
I would like to say that I've been enjoying the summer and resting in between races, but it's been fairly flat out, to be honest. Obviously, there's a lot of work going on, both with the season that we have right now, but you're starting to look ahead for next season in 2020. And obviously, I've had a few days off as well, and trying to catch my breath from the first beginning of the season.
Well, you went into this summer break on quite a high, though, with the first outright podium of the Euroformula Open season at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. What did that mean for you moving into the summer break?
Yeah, I think the podium firstly came a bit later than we hoped and expected, but better late than never. So obviously it was nice going into the summer break with a podium, and the feeling, both me personally, but also I think for the team, that we're on the rise. So really looking forward to the last third of the season, and obviously finishing off with a podium before the summer break. Just put a bit of a calm feeling over both me and the team.
So let's look back at what's been your rookie season, really, in Euroformula Open, but maybe more specifically in continental European single-seater racing. So the season started off at Paul Ricard back in the early parts of spring, and since then we've had plenty of races. So what do you take from the first bit of this season?
I think pre-season went pretty well, so we had pretty high expectations going into the first round of the season, but really from first on quali, we realized that maybe it wasn't all plain sailing throughout the season, and we had to work really hard for it. And I think we weren't really on top of our qualifying pace and maybe the understanding of the tyres to begin with, but I think we showed promising pace even from the first round. We had a fastest lap and finished 4th and 5th in the races, so we started off okay, but not fantastic. But we kept our heads down and tried to work throughout the season, and it's been ups and down. I think a lot tougher than maybe we expected to begin with, but I think we've done a pretty good job.
So obviously the highlight coming at the very latest race in Red Bull Ring there with that podium. But generally speaking, this season, like you've said, it's been a little bit of a tough ride. What areas do you see maybe where you and your team maybe have been lacking against the outright competition in terms of the victory so far?
I think it's been bits and pieces everywhere. Obviously, I made a few mistakes myself, and sometimes we struggle as a team to find the pace. And I think one key area has been the understanding of the tyre, especially during qualifying. We seem to be good in practice maybe and be amongst the top runners, but then come qualifying and sometimes even in the race, I don't think we switch the tyres on quick enough, which obviously hurt us, especially around tracks where it is difficult to overtake. So starting 10th, you're going to struggle to fight for a podium. So I think that's been one of the areas. And then obviously now as well with the change with the restrictor going into Silverstone, maybe that will help us and give some favour to us, but we'll see. But I think where the focus should be to focus on really work on the qualifying.
Just briefly looking ahead at Silverstone, because you mentioned the reintroduction, as it is, of the 2018 spec FIA F3 air restrictor, the 28mm. As far as I understand, this creates quite a big difference in terms of the engine and the car performance. Have you been able to try it out yet?
Yeah, I do actually. Just a couple of days ago we were at Snetterton for 2 days, and we got to try out the new restrictor compared to the older one that we ran previously in the season. And lap time wise, it's a big difference. We're talking up to maybe a second even on some tracks, but the feeling of the car it feels more than a second, because it gives the bottom end register a lot more power. And corners where you didn't struggle with, say, power oversteer, is some places where you're really going to have to think twice before getting on the power now. And I think as well it brings another element to the driving, but also in the races for tyre management, etc., because it'll be a bit higher tyre wear now throughout the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how both us but also other teams adapt to this new restrictor.
Would you have wanted that on your car when you took your first couple of steps around the streets of Po earlier in the year in the wet.
But maybe not actually thinking about it, but obviously that was very special. And like you say, first time around the street track in the rain, I kept my hands full just keeping the car on the track at that time. So more power then. Maybe it wasn't the best thing, but for now, I would more than happy to take it.
Could you please just expand on that Po experience, please? Your first ever time at the street track, one of the most notoriously difficult ones at that in the world, and you had everything. You had rain, you had dry, you had almost snowfall, I was about to say, but not maybe to that extent. But please just expand on that experience.
Yeah, it was one of the craziest things I've ever done, and one of the best things I've ever done, I think. At the time, just leaving the weekend, I wasn't super happy because results-wise in the second race it was very unfortunate, and I threw a podium away most likely, which meant that it took a bit away from the experience. But now looking back at it, I would love to do something like it again. And street tracks are something that's it's something very, very special, and I would love to race at one again. And like you said, being there for the first time, you would want maybe a complete dry weekend or something alike, but we had almost everything, especially in the races where we actually started on slicks, and then in the second race we went in for a pit stop, which I've never done before to begin with, but then to do it on a street track as well, where you drove around on slicks in rain conditions for the first time was very sketchy at some points.
So, just out of curiosity, when you first hit the track in practice at Po, what was the very first thought that struck your mind?
Don't hit the wall, because I think those were the last words that my engineer told me when I went out. Just like, all right, take it easy, don't hit anything, and just get to know the track. But after just maybe 1 or 2 laps, you wanted to push, and you started to play around a bit where the limits were, and you have to pick your spots around a street track where you can push. Like for in turn 1 example, you have the runoff and you can push to braking, whilst at turn 5, for example, there's no runoff and you can't push to braking. So you have to pick your moments of where you want to try and find the limits and where you're just going to have to slowly build up to it.
And you did take a while to hit the wall. I think it was at least in practice too. So, it takes a real racing driver has got to brace the walls of Po sometimes. Looking ahead for the remaining 3 rounds of the season, we've got Silverstone, Barcelona and Monza coming up. What do you think you will be able to produce there?
Difficult to say. Obviously, I know we want, both me and the team, we want to be able to fight for poles and wins at the end of the season. Obviously, Silverstone being the next round looks very good for us on paper because it's a home track for me and my team, and it's a bit of a personal favorite as well. So I got some very good memories from that track, and honestly I'm really excited about Monza as well because I've never been there before, and obviously it's a track that you would want to get off your checklist. But I think we're just going to take it race by race, and the target is to be able to fight for poles and wins and just take it from there on.